Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you can catch the new spills every week. And don't forget to hit the bell up top so you can be in the notification squad and we can squad up in the comments after. Alright, so lately on this channel with the different breakdowns we've been covering, we've kind of been on a collision course for this event to happen. And it wasn't intentional, really. I just had a few different playlists with different videos that kind of went in their own separate directions, and I did that just to mix it up a little bit. But even with doing different videos in different directions, it kind of just turned into the perfect storm and brought us to this event. And what led us here started up around the time that I was covering different Iron Man armors, and when we covered Iron Man's Uru armor, I did a breakdown of how it was made and talked about its functionality, and we also discussed the whole reason why Odin let Tony Stark have access to the Uru metal to make it as well. And the reason that Tony went to Odin to upgrade his armor into the Uru metal armor was mainly because Odin's brother, who was a serpent, he was released from his prison which he was put in by Odin, and he assembled a team called the Worthy. And it was a number of different heroes and villains who were put together on this team, one of which we're talking today is the Incredible Hulk. And the Serpent enhanced each one of their powers and also granted them all hammers similar to what Thor has. And I've had a few of you guys ask me to do Fear itself, and I may go ahead and do that because we've been pulling a lot of different stories that have been run through or intertwined with that event itself. But yeah, if you want me to cover that, just like this video and leave a comment down below. Or if you're watching this later on and you've seen somebody else left a comment, just like their comment. That way it'll shoot to the top and we all can see it. Because I do believe that perhaps by doing that video, it will give a better understanding to all these other little events that kind of rotate and revolve around it. But for this video, since we're highlighting Hulk versus Dracula, I think it's only right that I first break down which Hulk we're dealing with. And that way we'll have a better understanding of what power category he fits in before we get to him facing off with Dracula. And so for each one of these characters who were deemed worthy by the Serpent, they all also got a new title or name. In the Hulk's case, his name became Null, the Breaker of Worlds. And so just for clarification, this is your Bruce Banner Hulk, so the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. But when he becomes Null, there's a bit of an asterisk on top of that, because each member of the Worthy, they're not 100% in their right mind. And I mean, they're coherent enough to recognize people that they know, but it's like their consciousness is in a limbo between who they really are and the new title that they've become, who is sired towards fulfilling the will of the Serpent. And this affects everybody differently, because before joining the Worthy, some of these characters' power level wasn't anywhere near where it became. So for them specifically, it was an upgrade, because you're taking their strength from whatever level it's on already, and you're adding to that power that's being drawn from the Serpent, which is feeding off the fear of everybody in the world. And as an idea, you would think this would be substantial for any character, like this would put their power off the charts. But I beg to differ, because I believe that this had a mixed result all across the board. And I believe that the results of each member varied wildly because the Serpent's purpose of giving them this power was to serve his will. And only for the purpose of serving his will, not to make everybody crazy powerful. So on the flip side of those, like Great Gargoyle or the Thing, who had their powers enhanced, the Hulk is one character where I believe it was dampened quite a bit. Because putting him in a mental state where he's partially brainwashed and not mentally coherent enough to accumulate his own motivations for his anger, this really just gives him tunnel vision. And it's like you're telling the Hulk to get angry about something that he really doesn't care about. And if you really want to know the secret to what the Hulk's true weakness is, it is not giving a damn. Because you cannot truly get angry about something you do not care about. Think about it, because the most powerful events in the Hulk's history either dug deep emotionally, which have to do with his personal memories and loss, which work as a motivation, or it came to the point where Banner was shut down in his mind and the Hulk was just allowed to roam free. Once again, still motivated by his own anger. So in the Fear Itself event, when Hulk faces off against Thor, this isn't the Hulk at his best. So when he clashes against Thor, who's giving him all he's got, it is much more than this version of Hulk at this level can handle. And because of that, when they do clash, the full power of Thor, the full swing of Mjolnir, this sends the Hulk flying into space. And you're thinking like, wow, well if Thor's that powerful, why doesn't he do this more often? Like all of the times that he's fought the Hulk before, he's never done this. Why is he this powerful now? Well, there's a couple ways to answer that, but the shortest answer is that hit was a one-off. That was literally Thor swinging with all of his might. And immediately after dishing that blow, he hit the dab and went good night. But Hulk, on the other hand, he got some sky mileage because he traveled nearly 5,000 miles to the foothills of the Carpathian mountain range. And of course, after flying through space, it's over 5,000 miles because of the trajectory. But I'm just giving you a distance as far as how the crow flies, because you know that's how Siri be talking. But this lands the Hulk in Romania, which is just south of the Ukraine and home to Vlad Dracula. So now, as far as time in relation to other events, this takes place shortly after Curse of the Mutant event, where Dracula was resurrected, Wolverine became a vampire, and all that crazy stuff. And you can kind of tell because of conversation between the two guys here, and they put up a quick little wall of resistance to try to keep the Hulk from getting deeper into Romania, but they make mention of the North Gate that belongs to the Krieger sect of vampires. Not sure if it's pronounced Krieger or Krieger because in both issues it's spelled differently. In one issue is E before I, the other one is I before E, but either way, I guess you just take your pick. I'll just go with Krieger because it sounds more creepy. But with them mentioning that sector of vampires, and also us seeing the one with the suit on from the Mystico set, and we know he's from that sector because they're the more modern style vampires, always rocking suits, always GQ, all day, every day. And the guy he's talking to is from the Nosferatu sector, and they stick out because they look just like Nosferatu. And the badges that you see them wearing, it's an updated version of a technology that they use to be able to walk during the day, during sunlight. And we talk more about that in the video where Wolverine becomes a vampire, and I got the link below if you need to check that out. But when the Hulk pushes through the foothills and he finally arrives at this little barricade that they were able to put up as quick as they could, it's not really like a real defense, but it's the quickest they can do at short notice. And another thing too, going back to the factors that I mentioned about the Hulk and his strength levels, like now at this point versus his fight with Thor, those levels have gone up exponentially. Reason one is mainly because he just got knocked out. So at this point, he's looking for anything to smash that's right in front of him. And when the vampires tell him more or less, we will allow you to walk away, he is triggered, like instantly he just snaps. And this is where the rampage begins. And once again, this first wave that he breezes through, it's not like anything that was assembled to take on the Hulk. These are just soldiers of vampires that were kind of just close by or close enough to try to start a little barricade. But what we find out in this series is that within Castle Dracula, Vlad Dracula has a war room. And there's a significantly larger number of people in here than what would usually be in this war room. First reason is because this large number of factions has only come together in recent months. And I swear this dude right here looked like he's from the Count Chocula faction. Either that or Sesame Street. While everybody's drawing up war strategies, he's over in the corner counting to 10. Nah, I'm joking. But aside from the newly assembled vampire nation that Xeris recently put together and Dracula took over, you have all of them there. But on top of that, the second reason is you also have other vampires who are traveling in because of this huge event that's going on. And they're sharing intel with each other about first how the Hulk got this power, who else is out there with this kind of power, and they're really trying to figure out what options do they have to try and stop it. And so prior up to this point, I've been putting a lot of emphasis on the Hulk's strength level. And my main reason is because with every wave of defense that Dracula throws at the Hulk, like even with this not being the most powerful Hulk, granted he's a little more powerful than your average Savage Hulk, but he's nowhere near your World War Hulk power level, at least at this moment. Throughout the series, slowly he'll get stronger and stronger, but none of these guys really test that. We really don't see it until he has to break through Adamantium to get to Dracula. And this team called the Forgiven, which belonged to Regio Kodo, they offer to help, but Dracula just throws him in prison. And so now Regio Kodo is pretty much a Japanese immortal vampire badass. And when his team easily breaks out of Dracula's prison, he comes back offering counsel, but Dracula turns it down again, still insisting on handling this his own way. And Dracula just gets ridiculous right here because he takes those military-sized cargo planes that are filled with monsters and he bombs the Hulk with pretty much every monster you can imagine. And it's ridiculous. As far as the eye can see, nothing but monsters. Sky full of planes dropping crates full of nothing but monsters. And the Hulk is going through all of them like a 3-year-old through a Lego set. Like none of these guys is even putting up a fight. And it doesn't matter how big they are, Hulk is smashing through all of them. And it's funny because some of these monsters kind of look familiar. Like you have your mix up of some that look like Sauron, but it's really not Sauron. Others that kind of resemble Wendigo, but it's really not Wendigo. None of these monsters that go out are of any substantial significance, but they're mainly just Dracula throwing out what he has to either take down the Hulk or at least slow him down. But after that plan fails, Dracula gives Kodo permission to send his team out there. Kodo, on the other hand, could care less because he already sent them on their way, and they broke out of Dracula's prison with little to no effort. But Kodo's also sticking around in the war room to gather more information on the Hulk because he has a strong feeling that brute force is not going to be able to stop him. But instead, he's looking for a strategy to achieve this and hoping that his team will just go out there and slow him down. And really, that's all that they do because the Hulk is getting stronger. The people of Romania are terrified, which is feeding the strength of his hammer. And on top of that, everybody that the Hulk is going up against here so far is really not a match. So jumping back to the war room where Dracula's talking to the different leaders from the different factions, you have Regio Kodo, who's still here studying the Hulk, looking for a way to stop him. And they're talking about him and his team behind his back, saying that they're probably going to get killed, referring to them as a minor distraction. But Kodo is fixed on finding a solution, and he usually does. And when he finally finds the answer, he rips it off of the wall, and he immediately leaves to take action. But before he goes, he hands Dracula the pictures, kind of as a hint to tell him how to stop the Hulk, and then he just walks away. But then all the other faction leaders, because he walks away like that, they're like, okay, he's a coward, he's a quitter, he's walking out, he's just giving up. But Dracula knows him better than that. He lets him go, but in the back of his mind, he understands that Kodo is onto something, and Kodo is going to use the best of his own resources to execute his plan. But as for Dracula, his castle, and the nation that he runs, he's declaring war. Because he's not one to jump quick into any fight, and his son Xerus always hated that about him. But Dracula will fight when it comes to it, that's why he's waited up till this point. But at the same time, he refused a lot of the help from Reizio Kodo, because he's not too keen on outsiders fighting his fight for him. And it comes to a point where his frustration was like, alright, fine, let them go. Because in his mind, they're more likely to go out there and get killed and make it easier for him to face off with a more worn down Hulk. And initially, Dracula's alright with that. But up until the point of Kodo leaving, and Dracula declaring a vampire war, all of this has changed. And aside from Kodo figuring out how he's going to execute his plan on how to stop the Hulk, Dracula's last tactic is to stand strong with each and every vampire that is left in Romania. And another thing that we come to find out as the series continues is that not only does Dracula want to stop the Hulk, but he also wants his hammer. Because in the war room, they had tools that read the energy that the Hulk was projecting, and they were able to gauge the substantial energy that he was being amped by that was coming from the hammer. But at the same time, I really don't think that Dracula understood how that strength was tied to the serpent, because the fear that the worthy generate amp up the serpent, which in return amp up the source of their power. And the serpent, up until this event, was a secret that was kept by Odin, never to be told on Earth, way before Dracula was even born. But either way, Hulk's strength is slowly but surely on a momentum wave of increasing. And we get a great example of this because at a last stand with Dracula, Dracula covers him with an adamantium net that is anchored by gravity generators. And at this point, Hulk is gradually getting up to that strongest level that we've ever seen him at, because he tears through this adamantium net like it's just a ribbon at the finish line or something. And this isn't a small net by any means, like the roping is thick. And he tears through this net with one swing, breaking down the castle wall and also knocking out Dracula with one swing, weakening Dracula to the point where he starts to sense fear from him and feed off of that. And I can't stress enough how tough it is to really gauge how strong this Hulk is. But the best way I can explain it is like having a slow charging battery with an amplified output that's coming from another source. Like there's so many caveats to how it works, you can't really just compare it straight up to another Hulk. All you can really say is he can break this and he can break that. But when the Hulk is distracted by a chopper that's shooting at him, of course his attention span goes from here to there because now he has to smash that. But the thing that throws him off guard is when he sees that Betty is on that chopper. And this is real clever execution on the part of Reizio Kodo, because this is not actually Betty, but rather this is Ink Ka, one of the members of his group, the Forgiven, posing as Betty and telling the Hulk what he needs to hear in order to get him to calm down and give up the hammer. And it's a great plan. I just think one thing didn't work out the way that he expected, because when the Hulk snaps out of it enough, he actually breaks the hammer. So I want to say in a separate series after Fear itself, or not even in a series specifically, or in any event specifically, I want to say there was a time where Valkyrie came back to collect the hammers to take him back to Asgard, and Reizio Kodo was fighting against her to keep some for himself or something like that. I gotta look that back up and see. But when Bruce changes back, Dracula goes for the cheap shot and it doesn't work, because Hulk just hulks out mad quick right here. And mostly because he was mad that he was tricked. But he doesn't even care to fight Dracula or anybody in Romania anymore, because he knows he has to get back to the real fight because the world could end in less than 24 hours. But that'll do it for this one, guys. But Worthy Hulk, aka Noel the World Breaker. Tell me what you guys think. Like, where does he land on the list of strongest Hulks? Me personally, I can't put him at the top. I mean, he did break Adamantium, but so did 1610 Hulk. And this Hulk slaughtered that Hulk in a fight without the hammer. And it is tricky trying to gauge who would beat who in a fight just based on people that they fought already and virtually unbreakable metals that they've broken. But I feel like really that's what makes it fun having these debates and using these factual events to support our argument. So let me know down in the comments by hitting that like button and naming your top 3 or even top 5 strongest Hulks. And we can even start a bracket and take a poll at the end and see who wins. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I got plenty more Hulk videos. Links are up here so you can hit those. Squad up with me in that first hour and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Alright, later.